Dr. McIntyre, we are moving to our next session, which is a keynote session titled as Digital Transformation in Manufacturing. And our keynote speaker is Mr. Ahuja, Executive Vice President and CFO of Novelis Inc. And it is being moderated by yourself and myself. John, anything you would like to say before we get into the presentation by Mr. Ahuja?
Yes, I think many of us know Dave Ahuja, Executive Vice President and CFO of Novelis. Is a man of great experience who has had international business experience in not only in North America, but in Japan, South Korea, Europe, Switzerland in particular, and of course India. I note that he is an active member of the board of directors of the National Association of Manufacturers, NAM, and a member of the Atlanta CFO Roundtable. So he's quite a significant member of the local and the international and the national communities in his respective fields. And of course, we all know Novelis, which is headquartered in Atlanta. It's a company that stands out as being demonstrating what best practices can do. So really, we are very happy to have him here today to give us a presentation that will inspire our chat following up. Thank you, Dave, for being with us. We look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. McIntyre. Thank you, Ani. It's a great honor to be here, and I look forward to sharing my thoughts and having some discussions around that. Some of the themes that I look forward to speaking about is, why did we embark on digital automation? What we chose to do first in employing digital automation strategies, tools, and performance metrics. How did that choice deliver value to our internal processes, manufacturing operations, employee engagement, and most importantly, our bottom line? Where do we see ourselves expanding the use of digital automation going forward? And at the end of these brief remarks, I will also offer a few lessons that we learned from our experiences so far that I hope will prove to be helpful for any company considering their own digital journey. So if we move to the next slide. So let's start by talking a bit about who is Novelis, what are we? To begin with, Novelis is a $12.3 billion global manufacturing company with 33 manufacturing plants in 9 countries located on 4 continents. Simply put, we take huge aluminum ingots, 20 feet long, 6 feet wide, and more than 2 feet thick, which we have primarily made from recycled aluminum, along with some virgin aluminum, and roll them into what is called aluminum sheet. We then coil this sheet, which is just making it into a roll, and ship it to our customers in industries such as automotive, aerospace, beverage packaging, consumer electronics, building and construction, and a whole host of other industries. So moving to the next slide. Very importantly, sustainability has been a core principle of the Novelis brand since our founding. And you can see it is at the heart of our company's purpose of shaping a sustainable world together. Our fierce commitment to environmental stewardship defines who we are, what we do, and why we do it. Novelis leads the industry in making aluminum the sustainable material of choice for a wide variety of vibrant, growing industries looking for strong, lightweight, sustainably produced materials and circular economy-based manufacturing solutions. For us, sustainability is not just a nice-to-have concept. As the sustainability leader, we take our responsibility to reduce the carbon footprint of our industry seriously as we work hard to help identify and build a fully circular economy in order to reverse increasingly devastating changes to our climate, preserve natural resources, and avoid waste. But what we do is much more complicated than merely turning big hunks of a strong, lightweight, and infinitely recyclable metal into thinner versions of that same material. Ours is a precision-focused, circular economy-based manufacturing business that combines a high degree of fundamental science, detailed process engineering, and complex molecular chemistry. We leverage international supply chains for securing raw materials and have created innovative sourcing and delivery systems in order to maximize the high quality and reliability demanded by our world-class customers across the world. Each of the rolled and plate aluminum products we sell contains a different combination of metallurgic properties and process parameters designed to fit very specific and in many cases extremely critical performance standards based on the industry and application. So how could digital automation play into all of this is the question. That's the question we asked ourselves 4 years ago. And to us, the answer was clear, if not typical, for a world-class manufacturing company. So moving to the next slide. For starters, at Novelis, we are all about enhancing quality, driving productivity, and fine-tuning our processes and procedures to become more efficient, improving things like energy consumption, yields, and productivity. If Novelis is to keep and ideally expand our competitive advantage, our manufacturing operations were the obvious place to start. Specifically, we chose to go straight into employing digital automation to improve our manufacturing processes because that is where all the cost and return on investment lies for Novelis. What may seem like a relatively small percentage of improvement in key areas of our manufacturing process can significantly increase EBITDA, our primary metric of financial performance as a company. That's not to say that we have not been focusing on these issues for our entire corporate life. We have actually done that with great success, but we asked ourselves, what can we do better? How can we combine all of the experiences, progress, and innovation created and applied at the corporate, regional, and individual level to discover new ways to improve performance? The challenge was, how do we leverage the vast collection of existing but not yet optimized data from all our operations to further improve our efficiency, quality, and profitability? What can we do to ensure we will remain the sustainability-focused aluminum manufacturing leader? We chose to start with advanced analytics to begin our digital automation journey because it all starts with the data. We wanted to use advanced analytics to see what we could not see, or more precisely, what not all of us could see. Every day, the dedicated and highly skilled people running our rolling plants, our recycling centers, and our back office operations discover valuable insights and take steps to use that knowledge to improve what they do on an individual department, line, or plant-wide basis. We knew this. We have always relied on this. Those efforts have been and remain at the core of our manufacturing excellence mission. But we decided to go further. We hypothesized that many of these isolated discoveries and resulting improvements could deliver significant value company-wide if we could identify and capture them into an integrated pool of meaningful data and then act on the knowledge that would come from all that data. Simply put, we wanted to do things we had not been able to do because we did not have enough data or did not interpret that data, and we didn't have the right data, or we didn't have that data available to enough of the right people in the way that they could act on it. So with the help of McKinsey and Company, we set out to build an internal team of data scientists and data engineers focused on advanced analytics. We didn't have that level of expertise prior to that. Yes, we had pockets of data analysis expertise here and there, but not the structure and organization we have built and is in place now. By building a central team of people who were experts in big data analytics and machine learning, we now have a core group of data analytics professionals that work together as an integrated team to find relevant patterns in the data and develop applicable solutions. At the same time, we began targeting specific plans and potential use cases, areas where we could see the potential value of applying advanced analytics. We collected as much relevant data as possible from those operations and moved that data to the cloud, significantly expanding the amount of data we have visible in these core plans and making it available to the people who needed it, and in a format that would be easy for them to consume and act upon. We then selected plant engineering personnel for advanced analytics training. We specifically started with this group because most engineers have had some statistics training as part of their engineering education, which is one of the foundational requirements of learning advanced analytics. Additionally, many of them were already familiar with basic analytic tools such as Minitab or SAS, so they had a powerful base of knowledge for us to build upon. Through a combination of classroom training and on-the-job learning, we taught them the basics of Python programming, a coding language that is common among data scientists. This enabled them to be able to create their own analytic models. Through Python, our engineers can simply point and click to select the data they want, then drag and drop that data into our analytic tools, which will then create a quick model to show them what's happening and how to fix it. So our process was as follows. If we go to the next slide. We targeted specific plans that were the most important in driving the performance of our collective operations and our global supply chain. We educated plant leaders on the value of advanced analytics and how it could be used to solve critical problems within their operations. We held working sessions to identify the most important issues to be addressed at these core plans by understanding where the most glaring inefficiencies were. We defined specific use cases to be pursued to remedy the cause of these inefficiencies in productivity, unplanned downtime, quality defects, etc. We collected the relevant data for these use cases and moved that data to the cloud to have a single location where we could analyze, model, and derive insights. But here I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. Before any of that was possible, we had to address significant change management challenges, particularly at the plant level. When the term automation is spoken, many employees hear job loss, even though in our case, no jobs were in jeopardy. That wasn't part of our plan at all, quite the opposite. We were looking to increase the level of tools and support available to our plant engineers while growing their expertise in applied data analytics. This would make them more valuable workers, which is great for employee satisfaction and retention, especially when virtually all manufacturers today are constrained by a shortage of qualified workers. But fear of the unknown is a common response when new ways of working are introduced. We set out to explain that that what we set out to explain what we were planning to do, why we were doing it, and all of the positive aspects to come out from the changes we were about to make. Getting buy-in was critical to our digital automation journey being successful, and getting buy-in is the most critical thing anyway in any big change that an organization makes. So to do this, we held workshops with plant leaders to learn about their specific challenges and then vetted these issues to determine which ones could be solved using advanced analytics. The idea was to apply new data analytic techniques to problems that had previously been unsolvable. The result is our employees are starting to do in-depth analysis as part of their regular daily work. So, how has digital transformation worked out so far is the question. So moving to the next slide to talk about what we have done. Well, things have exceeded our expectations that we set out with. We have now executed more than 35 successful advanced analytics use cases focused on increasing productivity, throughput, efficiency, and quality across several of our largest manufacturing sites. These use cases have contributed to an increase in EBITDA of between 3% and 4% on an annualized basis. For us, that translates to between $60 million and $75 million annually in increased EBITDA. And let me walk through a few examples on how we achieved these incredible results. So moving to the next slide. So the first use case I want to share with you involved optimizing the scalping process at our casting operations in one of our plants in Brazil. To create a high-quality surface for rolling, the broadest sides of an ingot are shaved by a machine with rotating blades called a scalper. Scalping removes any irregularities or unwanted chemical compositions generated on the surface of the ingot during the casting process. It also produces waste, and we set out to reduce as much of that waste as possible through the addition of new sensors and the use of advanced analytics to take what was a standard scalping depth for all ingots and instead moved to an individual ingot-specific scalping process that significantly reduced waste. As a result, our plant was able to improve material recovery rates for our casting process, which increased the overall productivity and throughput of our casting center. So if we move to the next slide, a second use case targeted the generation of black dross at one of our plants in South Korea. Black dross is formed on the surface of molten aluminum or its alloys as a result of oxidation. It is a hazardous material and can be disposed of in a landfill. As black dross generation increases during recycling, remelt, and metal recovery decreases, reducing the efficiency of our remelt operations. So that is a problem we needed to address. The use case aimed to increase metal recovery rates for our recycling operations, a key component of our sustainability business model, by reducing black dross through optimizing the operating conditions of the equipment we use for our recycling processes. By analyzing the process conditions of more than 10,000 batches across 230 variables, the team found that by dynamically changing the furnace zone temperatures depending on the operating furnace conditions, black dross generation could be reduced. This reduction significantly improves the amount of material available for recycling, and we couldn't have done this without the insights provided by our advanced analysis of the volumes of data we had collected and curated. So moving to the next slide, Another use case we embarked on was to create and apply a data analytics model in one of our hot mills to predict equipment maintenance needs. Standard preventive maintenance practices typically call for maintenance to be performed on our hot mills at predefined intervals to avoid unplanned downtime of our equipment. The team analyzed a very large data set to develop a predictive model that served as an early warning system to preemptively identify failures so preventive action can take place prior to breakdown. Instead of following a preset schedule of maintenance, regardless of the condition of a particular piece of equipment, being aware of looming failures is now helping us to keep our plants up and running efficiently. We couldn't have done this without advanced analytics. These are just a few examples of measurable ROI we've achieved through digital automation thus far. You might ask, how did a company of our size and scope decide which of the issues illuminated by our advanced analytics initiatives were worth devoting time and energy to first, second, and after that? The answer to that is our people. Their insight, based on their access to the data and analytics tools, brought the impact of issues identified into fairly stark light, enabling us to allocate resources where they would deliver the biggest impact to our bottom lines. The key here is democratizing the availability of data. We want as many people in the company as possible using advanced analytics technologies so that we can achieve maximum impact. That decision just might be the most important one we have made so far in our digital journey. So, to recap the process, moving to the next slide, we built a robust advanced analytics capability in-house via a dedicated team of data scientists and data engineers. We extracted, cleansed, and analyzed manufacturing-specific data from our operations around the globe. We turned insights generated through advanced analytics into actions via use cases and pilots. We expanded the application of learnings and solutions across our operations to expand and lock in the value that was created. Moving to the next slide. So what's next on our digital automation journey is the question. One of the things we are trying to do next is to use digital more in our corporate functions to reduce the costs of running back office processes using advanced analytics to make people's decision-making more efficient. We are beginning to see measurable results there. In particular, these efficiency improvements mean that our people have more time for value-added strategic activities instead of time-consuming manual data analysis. Again, our efforts to reduce costs were not targeted at reducing headcount, but rather they are designed to help us get more out of our current team by empowering them with new tools and processes based on advanced analytics. We are also starting to collaborate jointly with our customers, and we are just now getting initial results from a few pilots in that arena. We compiled key types of data from one of our customers and put it into advanced analytics environment along with all of our data, and then we started analyzing the two together to look for opportunities that we wouldn't have seen if we were just looking at their data or just looking at our data. We are seeing how our manufacturing processes actually interact and influence their own production processes, and using that knowledge to fine-tune and optimize the processes working together with our customers. We are also beginning to apply advanced analytics to our supply chain to improve material flows and partner engagement. The bottom line is that there is so much that can be done with advanced analytics. In fact, the potential, I would say, is almost unlimited. So, moving to the next slide. Talking about takeaways, what are the key takeaways? I have a few to offer that might be helpful for any company embarking on their own digital automation initiatives. I would say number one would be that there are some things that only digital can do well, and there are some things that are much better to do using traditional process monitoring and issues correction methods. Things that involve very complex problems are generally better handled using digital automation strategies and tactics. Following that, in terms of importance, are more people-related challenges. You have to know your people and the cultures in which they operate. You need to recognize that they may not be comfortable at first with moving beyond their traditional tools, then work to educate and align their thinking as they adopt new methods of solving the most critical problems at hand. Third, and this is really a combination of the first two, I would recommend utilizing an integrated approach that combines both traditional problem-solving methods and new advanced data automation strategies. We have actually folded both methods under the same umbrella. Digital has become part of our overarching continuous improvement process that is driving the operational efficiency and financial performance of the company. Finally, when choosing consultants and partners to assist you, be sure to select a firm that has experience in your particular business or one very much like it. We chose McKinsey primarily because they had experience leveraging digital automation for clients in the steel industry. They had done it there, and that experience was directly applied to our industry with their help. The lessons they learned from these engagements and they could now impart to us was a huge advantage to Novelis. I hope that at least some of this has been helpful to all of you. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk today.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you very much, Dave. We are going to be joined by two colleagues to have a fireside chat discussion with Dave around the questions of digital transformation in manufacturing and the issues that he raised in his keynote presentation. I'm happy to introduce two participants in this morning session. Dan Abramson, who is a Senior Executive Director with SAS Institute. I think, Dan, you're located in Cary, North Carolina. Is that correct?
Yeah, SAS is located in Cary, North Carolina. I'm based in Chicago.
Oh, okay. And you have a tremendous amount of experience. You manage a very large P&L portfolio in one of the largest units of SAS. And you have a lot of experience in driving employee engagement, a topic that will no doubt come up in the next few minutes. And we're happy to have you. And thank you very much for participating this morning and sharing your insights. We're next joined by also Uma Ains. She also is with Novelis. She is the Vice President for Digital Analytics. And she leads the Digital Center of Excellence at Novelis, and she can tell us more, picking up on some of Dave's critical points, give us a more fine-grained, granular insights into the challenges of implementing data analytics as relates to manufacturing, but also expanding it upstream and downstream, not only within the organizations and its various components, but also among its suppliers and its clients. So welcome. Institution of data analytics, the creation of teams. I wondered if, Dave, you could expand a little bit on the notion, and you seem to really have one metric that you valued above others. Are there other metrics to judge and assess the efficacy of the use of analytics and the training of factory level workers in data analytics?
Right. So thank you, John. And we have a very well set, standardized way of looking at our performance, particularly performance in operations. And we look at improving recoveries. We focus on customer satisfaction because at the end, it's all about what our customers give us as feedback. So we place a very high level of focus on customer satisfaction. And by the way, we have industry-leading customer satisfaction levels of over 90%, which by any benchmark are really top of industry. We look at improving recovery. So recovery is a measure that we use. We use operational uptime, asset productivity as a metric. So we have a number of standard metrics that help us to measure how we are doing, and the impact of our digital applications was really being measured across these operational metrics, and we translated them into financial impact. So one of the things was, which I did not mention in my presentation, is that when we brought in McKinsey, we set clear KPIs along with them, and part of their compensation was linked to giving us well-defined results on identified KPIs. So that was really one of the things that we did, and we went in with clarity. And Uma, I'll let you add more, as you were right in the middle of that journey. Maybe you can give in some insights here.
Yeah. Well said, Dev, and just building off of what Dev had said, the important thing through this process was to make sure we're always talking in our vernacular terms that make sense in this case, operations. So as Dev said, we focused on the operational KPIs. As we implemented improvements and changes in our process, we were sure to make sure we give enough lead time to observe those improvements. Our state or our baseline was really at least 3 months, if not 6 months, right? Just to make sure that it wasn't a fluke or there could have been other changes in that environment, and really then monetizing those OPIs or the operational KPIs. And in the beginning, when we had external help, we did have a component of the fees of our provider tied to performance, and actually that really helped set the discipline. We're now self-sufficient, but we still have those muscles exercised in. We shouldn't be doing use cases for the technology's sake or the data's sake. What are the improvements that we're trying to make? How do we track those improvements? And then how do we monetize those improvements? Is the discipline that we actually learned by having that commercial agreement set up in the first place with our McKinsey partners.
I have a follow-up question for Uma. In taking the workforce as you found it at the time of institution of digitization, data analytics, did you find it a challenge to train in terms of upskilling or reskilling your workforce? And I know you mentioned that the prerequisites are an appreciation of statistics and knowledge of some degree of computer system knowledge. So I was just wondering what challenges you face as you begin training from the ground up, in terms of reskilling in many cases and upskilling in other cases.
Yeah. So my advice is it really needs to be twofold, right? So you need to have I'll say, academically trained data engineers and data scientists as some sort of central team, in addition to upskilling, right? Because you need that, the clinical training and capabilities within the organization that can help and continue to grow the upskilling. So when it came to the upskilling, we had a few lessons learned there. At first we had a call to action asking, hey, who's interested? But we quickly learned that the most successes were the people who had what I call the attitude and the aptitude to learn analytics, right? So it's and that's where the statistical training background requirement came into play, we had much higher success rates for the folks that just had the desire to lean in, because it is quite technical from a coding perspective and understanding how algorithms works and things like that. So my biggest advice to folks is really trying to figure out within your organization where those pockets of analytical capabilities already exist, people who are whizzes, so to speak, at Excel, people who have an inclination to use Minitab and SAS already. And the leap, quite frankly, to learn advanced analytics is actually not that big of a leap if you find those people and give them the right tools and training, and then more importantly on the job learnings to apply those new techniques.
Did you find that did you recruit a new workforce, and did you find that local technical schools were helpful in prepping the workforce for your requirements?
Yes, so we did hire new data scientists and data engineers. We intentionally kept the central team small. I am a big believer of the closer you are to the thing that you're trying to change and impact, the more efficient that skill can be. So organizations that are wider or broader and have a big a corporate structure and maybe regional P&Ls, I really encourage you guys to find the right balance of what level of centralized talent that you need, and then what level of as close to what you're trying to impact, having that talent. And then yes, we really leveraged based in Atlanta, leveraged Georgia Tech, Georgia Southern, in schools of the such to really tap into the data science talent that's available coming out of undergraduate and master's programs.
And in terms of floor level workers, which I would think is where the challenges might be in terms of actual implementation, data collection, use at the floor level, were you able to use some of the technical technical college system of Georgia, which trains more at the lower level?
Yeah, so in that case, John, you're referring to more of our process engineers, automation engineers that already exist in the plant. We have 30 plants worldwide. So in those cases, we didn't necessarily go the route through the technical universities, but rather took a look at our existing engineering talent at our plants locally. And those were the folks that we targeted for the upskilling of the skill set.
So you used workers within the plants to upskill and reskill.
Correct.
Which implies quite a bit of retraining, I take it, as part of the work situation, which is great. Let me turn to Dan, and you really have a good, really an impressive record in driving employee engagement. What would you say from your end of things are the challenges, particularly at the level of non-engineering trained workers, to really implement something, digitalization across the entire work structure, across the entire firm? What are some of the challenges, and how do you cope with them?
Sure, absolutely. I think what we heard from the Novelis team today is really a masterclass at implementing and putting together an analytics program and being successful with these use cases. So maybe just to put a quick wrapper on some of the things that we heard from Dev and Uma, what really stood out to me and what we would advise our manufacturing clients to do is very similar to the program that Novelis has rolled out. When we think about how digital is disrupting the workforce and how do we harness these changes to transform organizations, what we heard from the team here, a couple common principles that I think are really important is, you have to have leadership and exec visibility into the analytics processes, into the analytics culture change, and the use cases that we want to implement. We have to have consistent measures, KPIs that are kind of standardized and focused on. And then all of the projects really need to be tied to the corporate strategy and the P&L impact. And from there, driving company-wide engagement or adaptive change becomes a little bit easier, and the company feels bought into that. So I think how Novelis has talked about the projects and almost what would seem like an innovation pipeline of use cases is a really good approach to things. What SaaS sees from an analytics standpoint, and whether it's upskilling or training new workers or finding new talent, is we look at trying to democratize analytics across the board. So whether it be a data scientist or a citizen data scientist or an information consumer, we try to provide a platform and technology that enables that full landscape of users. So for us, it's all about really defining the use case and the business problem, and then figuring out how the platform can support the variety of consumers that need to act and drive decisions based on the analytic. I think, that's another point that I would call out, is that what we've seen is, look, there's lots of analytics tools out there in the market. There's lots of open source competencies, and folks are, very well trained in a lot of these areas. But the analytic is only as good as the decision that it can drive. And so we focus on, how do we enable that decision? And I think that's a really important aspect when manufacturing companies are looking at digital transformation. It's not just about implementing, an AI technique or a machine learning technique. Mm-hmm. It's the decision that it drives. It's the process improvement that it drives. It's the quality improvement that it drives. Areas like that I think are really important to focus on.
I'll address the next question to all three of you. If you're looking at the organization as a series of levels with different levels of knowledge and training, from really high school apprenticeship qualified workers to technical colleges, 2-year degrees, to engineers, where do you find in the organizational structure at different levels of training and different levels of responsibilities, where are the challenges, the actual implementation challenges of flowing from really an across-the-board use of data analytics to drive decision-making at the floor level or at the corporate level? And I noticed, Dave, in fact, in some of the challenges you outlined in your closing slide, you talked about expanding the use of advanced analytics to the corporate function. Could it be that the corporate function in terms of implementing analytics is a tougher challenge than implementing floor-level workers' use of analytics? Somewhat of a rhetorical question, but I'd like to hear your view on that, all three of you, perhaps starting with Dave.
So here is how I think about it. I think that when you are managing a change of the size that we are talking about here, I'm not sure if there is any one place, where the challenge is bigger than the other. I mean, let's start with getting let's start with getting the buy-in at the topmost levels of the company, at the level of the executive committee. It starts from there. You first need to embrace the change, in this case, moving towards digitization at the level of the executive committee. Everybody needs to buy in there. We have the 4 regional presidents who run their P&Ls. We have human resources. We have other corporate functions, including myself. Unless there is a strong level of sponsorship to first embrace and then be a part of driving that change, nothing can happen. So it starts from there. At the next level, then you need to get the right team, from the point of view of conceptualizing and executing. And Uma, as an example, was right at the top of that team in sort of really sharing the vision and really helping lay out the execution path. First conceptualizing and then executing, partnering with the operations team operations teams, you have to onboard the external consulting resources, to understand the culture, to understand, where the biggest challenges would be. They bring in the expertise, but they need to understand more about the company if they are to be successful along with us. And then, getting deeper into operations. It's then about, finding champions in operations, in the manufacturing teams, those who are early adopters, those who are, really the more inclined people, as Uma was referring, those who are more natural at adapting and adopting technology, because those are the people who would be your frontline change leaders. So it starts from there, and then it is about cascading that down the line. First, making everyone understand and be on board with the mission, and following that, imparting the right skills and training. So it's first about, motivating, and then after that, offering the resources and the training. So it is really a lot of intense change management at multiple levels, almost at every level of the company. And Uma has lived through that. Maybe Uma, you can share your journey.
Yeah. I echoed Dove's comments that change management, we can't underestimate that and the importance of that. And whether we're trying to affect change in a corporate function or in operations, I think that focus is 100% the same. I don't think one is easier than the other. I think where maybe from a data science perspective, maybe a little easier, I'll say, is data scientists who work with the corporate functions, because what you're trying to improve, you can conceptualize a little better, right? So most people understand your typical purchase requisition to purchase order flow. Not as many people understand, okay, the tilt and the bite of a hot mill, right? Because it's less common, that domain knowledge. And so I think that from a data science perspective, not change management, from a data science perspective, I have found it easier for data scientists to work a little bit more on corporate use cases or supply chain use cases, because the physical understanding of what's happening in the organization is a little bit more understandable than deep operations and affecting actual machine performance and the settings and things like that, which are, historically at Novelis is limited to a very small group of our experts at the plant. So that's what I would add to that question, John.
Dan, do you want to add some remarks?
I can build. Yeah, I can build on that and maybe give a plant-specific example that I think is relevant to the discussion. So one of SAS's clients and great partners is a similar process manufacturer. They don't make aluminum or steel, but they're a continuous process manufacturer that makes sheetrock. And it's a building material, an intense, continuous manufacturing process, commodity of gypsum that gets put into it. And one of the interesting things that we saw take shape years ago when we first started working with this client, was the where they stood on the analytics maturity curve, right? And they were just starting out on their digital journey. They didn't have very many data scientists. But what was very interesting to see happen was that the engagement between their subject matter expertise within the plant, the operators and the engineers that were responsible for the quality aspects of the product became very interested and engaged on how analytics techniques and advanced modeling could actually help improve their critical to quality metrics. So one thing that we had seen that was very interesting is that as subject matter expertise got combined with our data science expertise at SAS, there was this human magic that was almost unleashed, and the excitement between the teams grew. And we centered in on a use case on improving the quality of the drywall. They call it a nail pull test. Basically, it started at one plant, and I guess I'll wrap this up. The point was that through a focused engagement at one plant, where the subject matter expertise and the folks that were responsible for producing drywall had been doing it for 20 or 30 plus years, really bought into the fact that analytics techniques could help them improve. What we saw were great results in adoption within the plant, and then they started to advocate to scale that use case to other plants around the country and around the world. So it just would go back to the point where, let's think about a big, use case. Let's then start small and get people on board, and then move fast and get the project in motion. So, yeah.
Thank you for this mini case study. I wanted to follow up and ask a question of Uma and Dave. You have about 33 plants globally, if I recall. Did you find that implementation of data science solutions up and down in the cascading way is easier in certain countries where plants might be located than in others? Do you find that local work culture perhaps has an impact? I can't help but ask the question, given the fact that I teach cross-cultural management.
Yeah, I'd love to answer that. So yes, there's absolutely differences that have played into more the change management side of our journey. I think within the context of Novelis, that's part cultural and part each plant at our awesome company has its own kind of culture too, in a good way. What I will say, if I may be maybe just a little broad with some of my comments, I think the larger plants in the US that have historically been, I'll just say, our cash cow, more difficult to affect change because there's a bit of, how do you take an already high performing plant and make them even better, right? So it's a little bit of how do you break through of, no, this can even help you further. I think some of our plants in Europe are very, I'll say, self-sufficient. So meaning, teach me how to fish and then I'll get it from there, right? But then maybe don't bother me as much afterwards. And then our folks in our Korea plants, just culturally, I'll say that it's a very disciplined culture. It's a very, I'll say, compliant culture, but also innovative. And so change actually accelerates there really well because they take the best of the best and actually add to it very easily and naturally. So I think it's part, John, your typical maybe cultural ways of working, cultural norms, and then probably also a little bit of, culturally within Novelis, certain plants operate in certain ways. But yeah, so one of my big learnings is kind of sitting in corporate and global was being comfortable with adjusting the approach depending on the plant, right? So part of my role is to drive the standardization and the governance, and to understand where to push for standardization and where to embrace those differences in order for that change management to still accelerate given those differences.
Great.
Thank you. That's a very thoughtful answer. I really appreciate it.
I have a question if you
yes,
allow me to.
This is my colleague Annie. We have been joined by our next speaker, Dr. Victor McRae.
The question is probably more to Dave, and it stems from our conversations we have had, Dave, for preparing this session, is that how, globally speaking, how do you think we rank in the US in terms of the efforts which are being done for digitalizing the manufacturing industry? Because manufacturing is a different ballgame. I own a small manufacturing company. I know the issues which come on the plant level. I cannot even comprehend how difficult it is for global companies, where the cultures are different, understandings are different, machines are different, 2 generation, 3 generation old. So how do we rank ourselves in the US? How would you rank?
I think that I would not say that US is either too much better or too much worse. I think the challenge is pretty much of the same size and scale globally. And I have to say this, and also from my point of being on the board of National Association of Manufacturers, where I get to talk with a lot of people from the manufacturing segment, that there is a huge amount of untapped opportunity in manufacturing. Manufacturing continues to be very traditional even today, not just in the US. As I said, nobody is too much better or too much worse. But really, I think that one thing that I wish and hope, and we are trying to do that on our side, is we need acceleration in digitizing manufacturing. It continues to be far more traditional. And there is so much untapped efficiency that can be coming out of really doubling down the focus on digitizing manufacturing, bringing in IoT, really reskilling, retraining, and making people comfortable with digital technologies in operations and on the shop floor. There's a lot of work that is still to be done in that space. And even some of the best companies that I talk to, some of the top Fortune 50 companies that I talk with in the manufacturing space, I think they have a lot sitting ahead of them.
Right, great. Thank you, John.
We have one last question, if I may. I guess you're a trendsetter, and in the process, you're setting standards, and you're setting the proper use of metrics. Are you bringing on board with you, willy-nilly, your upstream suppliers and your downstream customers? Is that a challenge once you have achieved this digitization of the process internal to your 32, 33 factory operations and at corporate level? Do you then move on upstream and downstream, or do you impose it, or do you incentivize it?
I think that the place where we are for sure making a great progress is on engaging with customers. So we are running a lot of discussions and potentially solutioning where we bring customers together with us, jointly analyze data on their side. For example, we really want to see that on the customer side, if a certain coil is running well and another coil is not running well, what did we do right in the coil that ran better on their side? And what is it that sort of made another coil not run properly? So those are great opportunities, where you not only just solve the problem at the boundaries of your organization, but really come together with customers and understand from them as to how do our products perform on their side, and then bring the learnings into the company to see what you could do better to make the product perform better on their side. So on that front, particularly with one of our largest can customers, we are having some great discussions, and there is great engagement, but there's a lot more to be done on that front. There's a lot more that is coming. On the supplier side, I think we still have the opportunity, I would say, and we have to really go down that line in time to come. But maybe I'll let Uma also add some more perspective to this.
Yeah, I think on the supplier side, one of our challenges or opportunities is really the input into our process, or the most valuable input for us is scrap material, which is a very regional, segmented market, hundreds of scrap suppliers, right? And many of these folks are mom and pop shops with maybe not the capabilities, right? So how do we actually step into the value chain upstream by helping them help us? I think is an opportunity, but we have really been focused more downstream on the customer side. So we haven't cracked that nut there, but certainly a lot of opportunity given our focus on sustainability and recycled content.
Thank you very much. I think we've reached the end of our fireside chat and discussions. Dave, our thanks for a great presentation, and we look forward to the PowerPoint if you can share it with us in the audience. Dan, thank you very much for your insights. We know where to turn in need. And Uma, congratulations for really meeting the challenge of a really a tall mountain to climb. But I think now you have reached the peak and you can look at the achievements. So thank you all very much. We invite you to stay on.
I really appreciate partnership and support from Novelis. Dave and his colleagues have been a great help in today's presentation and session. And also they've been our sponsoring partner to present these series of programs, which we think are very important in today's time and the areas we covered. We are planning to do something on sustainability, Dave, in the coming months, next quarter, next year. So would like to invite you to support us in that. I read yesterday that you have signed a deal with Braves or about recycling of the cups or something. So great. We appreciate that. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Uma. Nice to meet both of you for the first time and look forward to staying in touch for our future programs.
Thank you
again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan, Uma.